started. So, time is 5:03, and I will start with a roll call just on attendance. So Mike?
Mike Dick here.
Susan? Susan, on mute.
Susan Franklin here.
Perfect. Brian Host here. We have Ralph Dormitzer as well. He seems to have stepped away from his monitor for a moment, but for the record, he is present. As I mentioned, the time's 5:04. Why don't we go ahead and get started with our facilities requests, which are first on the list. Yes. Oh, great. Hi, Francine. We just did a roll call. Can you just speak in as present, please? You're on mute.
Francine Lyons present.
Perfect. So we've got the entire committee present. And Nick, we'll turn it over to you for the facilities requests.
Great, good to see everybody. I guess we'll start with kind of more of a straightforward, easier one. The sewer line repair in front of the high school. This was stumbled upon. We had a backup out of one of the main sewer lines leaving the middle school side of the high school, and we actually discovered that a manhole cover had been paved over probably during the last renovation of the school about 20 years ago. And when we got into that, we discovered that in between where the backup was occurring and that, there was some issues. So this is to repair that issue so we won't have this backup going forward.
Okay.
I believe Brian Joyce kind of discussed probably a little better than I can in regards to this one. He did the DPW capital. I believe he just went over it briefly.
He did. Nick, is there anything complicated about this? So should just straight up need to replace that that sewer line from point to point, and
it's very straightforward.
Okay.
It was kind of a weird design where it creates a backup because there's like a belly in between two manholes. So, it's not an issue most of the time, but over time it builds up until it turns into a backup. So
Okay.
Just get that flow going.
Okay. So this is just about basically just putting in a new pipe at a consistent slope, and
it's not even the full pipe. It's more of just repairing a section as opposed to like a full tearing up a large portion of the parking lot. So
okay, and no change on the number.
Nope, that should be perfect right there.
Okay. All right. On to the next.
Yeah.
Actually, before we leave that, any questions from the committee? I mean, we heard part of this last week. We just heard the summary the second time. I'm curious if anyone has any questions before we move on.
I do have a question. Nick, is it unusual for a contractor to pave over a manhole? Or is a manhole like something that in the construction business you never pave over one without checking into it?
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily do that. No one could really decipher why that would have happened. But it was on our plans. So we did dig through the old plans, and that's when we found that there should have been one there. There was no patchwork, so it was a matter of literally following the plan to the inch. And when we started going through the pavement, found it under.
Yep.
So yeah, can't say as to why that happened. At least it was on the as-built, so we had that going for us.
Okay, thanks.
Was it like just below the asphalt, or was it like 3 feet down?
Oh, just 2.5 inch, whatever the
Wow.
the,
They like
the
literally
pavement
paved
layer
over
was.
it. It didn't get buried. They just literally paved right over it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Why don't we move on to the next request?
Okay, next request will be facilities vehicle. During the last vehicle purchase, I had expressed the interest in trying to go with an electric fleet truck, which is the new Ford Lightnings. We pushed that request off a year just based on the fact that it was the first model year and the purchasing window had closed anyway. So we're bringing that back up now. You know, the past year and a half, it's been difficult with vehicle purchasing. The costs have been extremely volatile. The price increases on these have been unusual to say the least. So I've had a little bit of trepidation when it comes to whether we should be going for this electric truck or a regular gas-powered vehicle at this point, based on the enormous cost increase. It went up. So from the time that we were going to buy it, but we decided not to, it jumped $10,000 in 1 year, and then Ford has not released the next pricing model yet, but the dealership said he would not be shocked if it went up another 10,000 or more. The problem with that is that brings it up to a cost that is equivalent to the gas-powered truck that we would request. And when you take into consideration that the gas-powered would be a 2,500 instead of or a 250 instead of a 150, it comes with a plow. You start to have second thoughts on if it's worth getting a green option vehicle at that point for the cost. It's been frustrating me lately. I'd love to hear some input in regards to this, just because it was a great idea when they were $40,000 and we're going green at the same time. But now it's the same amount, and is it worth it for a less capable vehicle in theory? The other caveat is if we spec this truck the same as the last one we got, the price goes from 60,000, which was last year, to 85,000 this time. If we take away the utility body portion and the lift gate on the back, we can get it back down to 60. So we have three kind of options to look at on this front.
I just seized on two words that you used in reference to the Lightning, and that was less capable. Can you just expand on that?
Yeah, and and I will kind of back that off a little. So less capable in terms of heavy duty use, but more capable in some other ways too. We'd be able to use that vehicle obviously as a generator for anything we would need in the field, in a large capacity at that. But it's a 150 platform. It's not a 250, so we wouldn't be able to plow with it. We wouldn't have a utility body. So in that aspect, it's not as capable. It's definitely not as heavy duty.
Okay, so you would not be able to plow with it. Do you have staff to run all these vehicles in plow mode? In other words,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
this would in fact be a hamstrung vehicle in the context of its plow.
Yeah. I mean, our our plowing responsibilities aren't massive. You know, we did take on just a couple more parking lots this year as a department just to kind of help out. And we do have that third vehicle now, so that made it doable. But we try not to overextend ourselves with plowing duties because during a storm, we're also responsible for popping in and out of the buildings and making sure they're good. And if push comes to shove, we're going to stop plowing to take care of a building. So, you know, it's not our main thing, but we do try to do as much of it as we can to take some load off the DPW. Because I know getting plow drivers is becoming more and more of an issue over the years. But you know, so we're not losing capability, but we're most definitely not gaining any capability by getting a vehicle that doesn't plow.
For right now, we've got two plow pickups.
Three plow pickups.
Okay. We've got three. Okay, so this would be a fourth if we were able
Yeah.
to. Have it. Okay,
And we could fully staff that.
you could.
Yep.
Okay. Other members of the committee?
I have a question. Nick, what drove the decision in the first place to go for a 150, and why don't we just replace the electric vehicle with a gas 150 if that was your original intention, was to get the 150 weight
So
and no plow? It
so
seems
the-
like we've escalated the vehicle.
the original thought was that it was getting an electric that could double as the generator. We didn't want a 150 per se, but it was a
Mhm.
good option to start going green with our facilities fleet. Just based on the fact that we would outfit it to be a facilities vehicle. It would be loaded with the tools we use, the supplies we use. So it's, when you look at plowing, it's such a minuscule part of its life per se. Like look at this year, we haven't even had to put
Yeah.
the plows on once, so.
I mean, could you make a 150 work, a
uh,
gas powered 150 work and drop
Yeah,
the outlay?
yeah, we definitely could. My mindset with that though is if we're gonna get a gas, we might as well get one that can do more. And I don't believe the savings would be worth the lesser capabilities, because then we're also losing the capability of a vehicle that also doubles as a generator, and doesn't meet our green wishes. Because I know that's what we're trying to do with fleets as much as possible. Yeah, so it wasn't going for a 150 just because we wanted a lighter truck. It was
No, but
geared-
you'd come to a conclusion that the 150 could work for us. And I
Yes,
appreciate the
yeah.
fact that the bonus was a generator.
Yeah.
But okay, let's say we'll go with a gas 150 to carry tools and move around town. It seems like you've got 3 plow pickups that are handling the job now. That you haven't told us that there really is a strong need for a 4th plow truck. And so I'm interested in saving more dollars if we can, if you can make the 150 work. Now that's my take on it. I'd
Mhm.
like to hear from the other committee members.
What's the difference in price between a 150 and a 250? Gas to gas.
I am going to I'm gonna do that first thing in the morning and see what kind of pricing those run at. You know, we as a town, we tend to not have any 150s. So this would be the first one in a long time. So I don't know any actually I think the only, trying to think. I think one of the police trucks might be a 150, but that's going to be
Right.
hard to compare just because of how they're outfitted. So I don't have any comparisons to go off right now, but they're really good about getting me a price pretty much same day. So I will be able to see where they're at.
And would it ever make sense to buy a late model used F-150? Or does that even exist now in this era we're in of you can't find a used vehicle?
Yeah, I think based on the prices of used vehicles, it's not in our interest to get a used one.
Mhm.
I just from what I gather, we shy away at that um these days. I don't think the savings are there to warrant it.
Okay,
Just gets us, it also gets us into maintenance and replacement that much earlier.
Yeah, warranties aren't as good. Yeah, it can be not as good to go that route.
okay. That's it for me. Thanks.
So Nick, I can't find the fleet report that we were looking at last week, but how old are the other 250s?
So we have the new one we got last year. So that's a 22. We have a 17 and a 2015, I think. It's either a 14 or a 15. And then the other vehicles we're using right now are we're using one of the Nissan Leafs. That's the town hall cars.
Mhm.
So that would free up one of those, which is great.
Yeah,
And we have gotten a hand-me-down, the old Ford Explorer from the fire department that we've been using. But so we're making do with some vehicles that were not being used by other departments in town.
yeah. Well, I'm asking the question more in that if we were to do this 250 now and one of the older ones begins to age out, would that be an opportunity then to maybe look at the going electric? And is one of these going to be coming up? Like a 2015, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually interesting to even start thinking that that's going to be 10 years old sooner than we think. It's in great running condition, so I don't foresee us not being able to get a lot more years out of it, but that cycle will start. We are going to start seeing that come sooner than later, I would think. If we're looking at like a 12-year life cycle, is that kind of what we're usually thinking for these trucks that actually do some heavy work? It would start to backfill as they age, especially if that's a 14.
So potentially this newer vehicle could be used for more of the heavy duty work, and that older vehicle could be used for what you initially thought the F-150 would be used for?
Yeah, that definitely could be a smart thing to do, especially if we take it out of the the every storm plowing rotation, because as we know, plowing is the number one abuse maker. So that could be a great way to get our older fleet to last longer.
Okay.
But your instinct on that 2015 F-250 is it's got a handful of decent years left in it.
Yeah, it's we keep up with the maintenance really well on it. We have no immediate signs of massive issues with it. Rot is actually not as bad as I thought it would be, honestly, for all the years having salt in the back and running around. So I think we have a lot of good years out of it. It's definitely low on miles too.
Okay. Just an observation. I mean, the longer we run these, the the more amortization we get fundamentally of any increased upfront cost of buying the right or the optimal vehicle. If we were turning these over every 5 years like a police car, it becomes more sensitive. But we're getting more than twice the life out of these.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions from the committee on this one?
Nope.
Okay, I guess maybe just one last question, Nick, on this. You had you'd mentioned that we could do this with or without the utility body on it. If we go gas, what's your thinking on that?
My initial thinking, it obviously makes it less all encompassing capability wise. Obviously with the utility body, we outfit them pretty good with all the tools we're going to need. A lot of our common supplies, which really limits our need to run back to storage to gather this or that.
Okay.
So the way that we try to look at it as every person has a vehicle that's capable of fixing what you're there to fix. So I've found that it's really cut down on our random driving around time, which it may not sound like a lot, but when you're driving 10 minutes to go grab supplies, 10 minutes back, by the time you're in and out of the building, that's a solid half hour, and that adds up over the course of a day and a week and a month. So
Right.
That's what we're trying to do, is almost become mobile shops, because we don't really have a shop anyway, so we try to do that as best we can. So if we don't have the utility body, it's going to lose a lot of capability on that front for sure. But I do understand
It'll cost
that
your team time fundamentally, running
time,
around and
yeah,
getting stuff
yeah.
that you don't have on the work site that you need.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at the same time, I do understand that it's a pretty large savings not getting that feature.
Okay. The three that you have right now, they're all utility bodies.
No, the oldest one is just a regular extended cab, regular bed.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And what is the price difference on the utility body?
Based on the quotes I got, the price difference was so the truck without the utility was about 60,000, with the utility body and the lift gate, that is part of like that package. It bumps it up to 85,000. The lift gates are probably one of the best features that we have, because it can lift close to 2,000 pounds, which is great for, like, we do a lot of heavy moving of stuff, and you can just roll it up and it hydraulically lifts it right up to the bed height. Saves a lot of potential injury.
Okay. So basically we can get, an F-250 with a utility body and a lift gate for roughly the same cost as a Lightning without any of those things. Is that pretty much what it comes down to?
No, I would say and this is without having any knowledge what the new Lightnings or what the next cycle is going to cost.
Right.
The estimation is around 60. I'm gonna guess over 60 based on just the pattern it's been going up.
Yeah.
So the truck with the utility body is more than what the Lightning would be. A truck without the utility body would be probably less than what the Lightning is going to be.
Okay. And you literally can't get the Lightning with a utility body. Is that what it comes down to?
Oh, yeah, no, that,
Okay.
yeah, that's an extremely specialized vehicle. And the other thing to think about too is the dealer did tell me that everyone that did get or were able to purchase a Lightning last go around still does not even have word from Ford when there's even an estimated delivery time. Like they don't even know when they're gonna make the trucks for them.
And that's from the last cycle.
Yeah, so they're very much in the dark. The dealers are kind of not super excited about how they've been rolling out the Ford Lightning purchasing. They only open the purchasing for 1 month and then they close it. So that's usually not a great thing. It tells them they don't have a lot of stock. So that's another thing to consider is even if we did go that route, it's a pretty large question mark when we would get that vehicle.
Feels like we should actually purchase something that we might actually receive.
Yeah.
Just speaking out loud. Okay. Any other questions from anybody on the truck? All right, let's move on.
Yeah, so the last item was the Beechwood Playground.
I think I can speak to that. So we do have this under the facilities arm because they are the ones that are going to take over the playground from the recreation department. We don't really have more of a status update than we had in the fall. We had a couple of vendors come out. We had one vendor inspect the playground, give us a cost to repair, which you funded at special town meeting. We're moving forward with asking for the full playground at annual town meeting. We're working with the Beechwood, I guess, neighborhood group, and they're working on a private fundraising effort that's been up on the recreation page and will be promoted at the recreation fair. The rec commission has offered at this point in time $7,500 towards it from a rate that they had. We are going to go to CPC for this funding. We're not asking capital for any funding for this project. We just wanted to bring it before you because it does meet all the thresholds of a capital project.
Okay. All right, we reviewed this one at length last fall, but that doesn't mean no one has questions. Does anyone in the committee have questions on this one?
Yes. Even though you're planning to go to CPC, like us, has a lot of groups coming to them for funding, competing.
Mhm.
So I'm just going right back to where we were last fall, which is if $30,000 will get us some additional life out of this playground, then we should go with that. And you've got the money in hand. And rather than make the public wait to get a better facility, why don't you just go ahead and get the thing updated and done? It just seems like you're postponing the improvements for an unknown indefinite period of time, and you may or may not get the money.
Right. So I can answer that the best way I can. So this is a community effort to push this forward. We do have the money in hand to make repairs. It isn't going to make any additional enhancements. It's simply just repairs of break fix items at the playground.
Yeah.
And the community is looking for, I guess, an updated playground, something that you see in other communities, and even something that you see at the library. The playground is older. It was purchased used, and the Beechwood community is looking for something more.
So that's still, it still doesn't address the it still doesn't address the concern that we're delaying the better use of a playground. No one seems to be working with this community group and saying, you know what, let's take what we have and roll with it. It feels like, I don't know if it's a select board, I don't know if it's Chris Senior as his town manager saying, hey, let's try and get the community to do some fundraising and see if we can't get it. It just seems like decisions are being made that aren't very practical,
Right.
in my view.
So they are doing a fundraising effort. And we've had discussions with them to say, maybe if it's not at annual, maybe it's at special, maybe it's at next annual. But I guess
So-
the big question here at hand is, do you want to dump $30,000 into a playground that you're going to tear out in a year or 2 years' time?
In my view, yes, you're going to repair
Okay.
a playground, which this is my view.
Okay,
We've authorized $30,000. And it seems to me that you're not going to get a brand new playground in anything less than 2 years. And there's still no certainty on getting your funding there. It could be 3 or 4 years if you haven't raised all the funds. And there's more and more pressure on the capital stabilization fund and more pressure on CPC. So this is just my view that someone should actually take a leadership role and say, look, let's repair it and you'll have a better playground to use. May not be what you want, but this is what the town can afford to do for the near to mid future.
so I can definitely take that feedback back to the people championing the project.
Right. What do folks feel? I mean, what should Michelle take that message back?
So Mike Barkley has his hand up. I don't know if anyone
Yeah.
can see that.
No, I can't.
Okay.
Hi, so just maybe I'm confused and please tell me if I'm wrong, but I thought that when the $30,000 was approved for the repairs, do I remember correctly that part of that was because there was some safety issues related to the playground? Am I,
Yes.
or am I remembering that incorrectly?
No, you're remembering it correctly.
Okay, so I guess I'm sort of wondering if there were safety issues, those would need to be addressed immediately, I would think, right? And so why wouldn't those be addressed? And then, you know, to Mike's point, you know, kind of, I don't know, just like look forward and, you know, take some time to really think about the bigger check that needs to be written for a brand new playground.
Right, so I can appreciate everyone's comments here. And the information that I have is that the Beechwood neighborhood would like to move forward with a playground as soon as possible. So I don't know what the efforts are to do it at annual town meeting, or like I said, special town meeting. And I don't have enough information from that community group or the person championing this project to answer these questions. But yes, there are some safety concerns that will need to be fixed immediately. And they will be prior to the, I guess, playground season.
Okay.
But if there was approval from CPC to move forward in funding the playground, I think they'd return the $30,000 to you and they would start immediately on a new playground. Oh, Mike, Mike, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay, whoops. Okay. So, Michelle, I'm just advocate a little bit, and I know you don't have all the information. But to me, some of that 30,000's got to be spent for the safety issues regardless.
If
Right.
the playground, if it's agreed that the playground is not going to be funded, 100%. If the playground is going to be funded, I
You're
think
gonna-
the idea is that the playground, the pieces that have some, I guess, danger associated with them would be blocked off and not usable until the replacement of the equipment.
Which might, right, I mean, even if they were to get funding at town meeting, by the time it would be built, probably, I don't know how quickly it would be built, but again, it would just be, seems
They would
to
lose the
me there
whole
would be,
season. They would
Yeah,
lose the
they're-
whole season.
they would lose the whole season, and you're operating with a playground where you're trying to block little kids from getting to certain areas of the playground where there are safety issues. I don't know, that, I don't mean to belabor this, but that's just,
No, it's, your point is extremely well taken, and I'm really kind of shocked that we would not be spending the money now and not saying, well, we'll wait and see. And well, maybe we'll return the money to you. That doesn't help us. And I'll say this, if those repairs aren't made and the Playground Association comes to us for an approval on the capital spend, at this point, my feeling is I would probably decline. I would probably not vote not to approve because of the lack of leadership and good decision-making, in my view.
So I don't want to say that it's poor decision-making and everything on everyone's part. So this is a new request. It was something that was brought at special town meeting. It was something they asked us to bring back for annual town meeting. We have it on the capital plan as we would everything else. I don't think everything has been flushed out just yet. I don't think anyone's going to put kids in an unsecure space. I think we really need to flush it out, but as with any project, we bring it before you. This is a little premature based on, you know, do they have funding? Where's the funding coming from? Are they going to CPC? But what we don't want to happen is what happened in the fall, whereas we come to you at the 11th hour and say, we want a playground. So we're trying to be proactive, and sometimes being proactive, you don't have all the information. In no way are we going to open a playground that has safety issues to children. And if we do have to invest that $30,000. But one thing I do want to say is what I fear might happen, and this is a fear of mine and only mine, speaking for myself, is if we fix the playground at $30,000 and they come before for a new playground, are we going to say, well, that fix is good enough for 10 years, so you don't need a playground?
That remains to be seen.
Right.
That remains to be seen, but I don't think that should be holding you back from getting those repairs made ASAP.
Well, the repairs won't be made until April anyhow, because that's the season, but if that is the desire of this board, is to have those repairs done and not hear an overall bigger project plan, I can go back to the people championing this project and let them know that.
I guess I'm wrestling with the concept of the repairs being, you know, urgent and safety required, which I think was our perception when we funded them back at special town meeting, right? The idea was wait. And so I think part of the, you know, part of the reason some people are perplexed is because, you know, it was funded and under the perception that it can't wait, and now it's, you know, it's waiting. And I guess the question is, you know, is the equipment actually a danger that needs repaired, or is, you know, is that really not the case?
No, and I think, so Brian, I think the only reason it's waiting is because it's not the season to fix it. It went for special, so we would have the funding in March or April to fix the equipment.
Yeah.
So
So nobody has access to that equipment right now on a nice day? I would think there'd be kids on those playgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are kids there. I see them all the time.
There are.
The problem principally, as you probably know, is on the far right, the equipment, that one piece of equipment on the far right has significant rust on the second platform. And on the first platform, some rubber, which is part of that, all of the platforms have rubber protection, is gone. So, you know, those are the really big repairs. What I heard last time, as I understand it, is that the wood chips were difficult to get or maybe expensive to spend. but I believe they were available for a little while anyway, as I understood it. So we were going to put the wood chips in, and we're going to fix that particular part of the playground equipment, and also take some of the fogged plexiglass pieces and also replace those. Those all seem logical things to do to me anyway. So, and then that protects that whole playground for another maybe 2 or 3 years at least. And so I think it's a good investment, to be honest with you. So anyhow, that's how I look at it. And also, the only thing I'd say to you too is that based on the experience by a lot of football teams, a lot of people are coming around to the understanding that rubber is not a great surface anymore, and that people are getting scraped up, and then it's quite stiff, and a lot of reasons why we're choosing to get away from wood chips, which are quite soft and nice, and have something much harder so that we meet the ADA requirements. I understand what's going on, but I wonder how well considered these things are, given the fact there's so much clear evidence now that the rubbered surfaces are not too terrific. But anyway, that's my view. So it'd be nice to have this all thought out more completely. That's all. So
I understand. And I will certainly bring these comments back. I think they're all great comments.
Yeah, I mean, just a personal instinct on this. I don't want anyone to get hurt. So if the equipment is a present danger, I hate to have it used as is for the next 6 months or however long it is until they start tearing it out for a new playground. I guess if CPC wants to fund this, I'm somewhat more amenable to the concept than perhaps some others on the committee, but I don't want someone to get hurt in the meantime just because we're trying to defer the maintenance.
Right, so we have the money, so we can go ahead and fix it in March, as soon as they can get here to fix it, and go from there.
When are they going in front of CPC?
I don't have an answer for that yet, Brian.
Okay. And I guess if CPC wants to fund it, I guess you could always close the playground until that happens. But I don't know. Okay. Any other questions on this one? Nope. Okay, I guess we're gonna have our answer from CPC in the next 30 days because the warrant's got to close. So. Okay, I think that's it for facilities. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
All right, fire is next on our list, and we are running behind schedule, for which I apologize. But let's move on to fire.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Chief.
Nice to see everyone. I only have the one item on the request. That's $30,270, and that's to outfit 3 new hires that we're in the process right now of trying to fill 3 vacancies. 4 vacancies right now, and I need money to outfit 3 of these individuals. It costs about 10 grand. A firefighter to outfit him. It gives him a helmet, 2 sets of turnout gear, 2 sets of gloves, 2 sets of hoods, and an EMS coat and a flashlight. So that's my request to the board at this time.
Right. I think we've seen this request in similar form for past hires. So I'm not sure there's a lot of controversy around it, but I'd certainly open up to the committee for any questions.
the only question, John, would be, is there any chance that some of the equipment is completely unused and was the second for some other person who has left and could be moved over to a new person, so you don't have to buy all new, but because we bought new stuff about 2 years ago, I believe. So at least about the second set 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yes and no. The problem is that we're all not the same body type. That's the problem. That's the problem. So we do try to use whatever we can to outfit new hires, but again, we all have different body types. That's why I have to put in the request now, because I don't know what type of bodies I'm gonna be hiring. And go from there, so. Hopefully that answers your question.
But you would, basically, you would save if you could, is basically. what you-
Oh,
yeah.
definitely, most definitely. Yeah, yep, because the gear, structural gear only has a 10-year life expectancy according to the NFPA standards. So that's why we can only use it for 10 years. And then one thing else, Brian, if I may, you mentioned about, you were talking with facilities regarding if there could be any increases. And there could be a slight increase in my request, because there will be price increase in February. The manufacturer hasn't told me what it is yet, but I may need a few extra dollars for this increase, for this request, because when I did this back in November, they gave me their rates for November, but they said there's gonna be price increases in February. So I may be coming back asking for maybe a little bit more, okay?
Let's just, yeah, as soon as you can get that number, the better. We've got to
Yep.
make it all fit. So
Yep.
it gets harder as we get deeper into the process.
Yep, completely understand.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Does anyone else on the committee?
No.
Okay, great. That's helpful.
Great.
We'll move on to police.
Thank you.
We'll circle back to the we'll circle back to the first responder facility at the end of this. You probably want to stay with us, I think.
Sure, I'll hang around.
Okay. Great. Moving over to Chief Quigley.
Hey there. Hi, everybody. I have Rich Kinship with us too. He's one of our support people. He helps, he handles the fleet. But the request this year is the standard crew replacement program, which is $124,000. And the second request is leasing of tasers, which is about $12,355. And yeah, I can talk a little bit about the taser replacement program after we deal with the cruisers, but I guess sort of there's no real surprises here. We pushed the tasers off from last year to this year, and part of the reason we did that was that Taser changed their business model, and they used to just sell the items outright and warranty them. So now they're leased to own, and they supply the Taser cartridges and the charging banks and all that stuff. Everything you need to be up and running. So it's actually a little bit better for us. Any questions?
So on the tasers, you said it's lease to own. What happens at the end of the lease? Do we actually take those tasers? Do they take them and retire them and give us a new fleet, and we just keep paying, whatever it is, $12,000 a year?
I'm sorry. It is actually not leased to own. They're leased.
They're leased.
Okay. I'm still back on cruisers. They're leased, and they take them back, and I'm not exactly sure what they do with them after 5 years.
Okay. So we just constantly have an annual lease payment and a new and updated set of tasers when and as needed. Is that pretty much the way it works?
Yeah, correct. And these new ones, it's a different generation of taser, and
Yeah.
it's actually a lot better. You can flash them with software updates, and they download automatically once they're put in the charging bank in the station. Where now tasers that we have now have to be manually uploaded. They retain information about when they were tested. They have to be tested every shift. So these will be a little bit easier to deal with.
Okay. Okay. Do others have questions on the tasers?
Nope.
Okay.
Bill, how many tasers do we actually have?
24.
24. Okay. Wow. And utilization, what has that typically been for you?
Well, we have one incident that didn't work out so well back in 2018. We had that. It was we used taser back in December at a house down on Cushing Road. Basically, it gives us another tool where hopefully it prevents us from using deadly force.
Right. No, I've always supported that. I think it was a good idea. It's just a matter of, do we need 24? Because the utilization is relatively low. It's just asking the question, not saying I really know the answer, but just asking, given the fact that both utilization and maybe even effectiveness, as we found out in 2018, for some people is amazingly resistant. People are basically resistant to it, which is really quite astonishing. So, yeah.
Really, it's standard equipment now, really. And the 24, the reason why we go 24 is we have, 20 are deployed in the field, and each shift has 3 people on it usually. So in the case, where we had a deployment, we take everybody on the shift's taser. So we need 3 to replace out. We always keep a mechanical spare.
So Chief, it says here that you expect a 10% increase in the pricing?
Yeah,
That's
so
the pricing that's here right now, the 89,000?
correct, yes. Pricing is just all over the map, and it's very difficult to project. I mean, that's not just for tasers, but for everything. I could not, they come out with their pricing in March, so this may be adjusted. I think 10% is awful high. So I think they've given me worst case scenario. I would have to surmise that it's going to be closer to 5.
And just one other question on the return of the tasers. I'm guessing that it's not going to be difficult to find the 24 because they're pretty carefully tracked, but what condition do they have to be in when you give them back?
I'm not, that's a good question. I mean, they're not really beat up. We have the ones that we own now, there's actually value to them. So we will be able to trade them, but I don't know what the value is. Because everything is up in the air right now. So we will be able to sell the ones that we have.
Yeah, I'm just looking for, if there's any kind of clause in your document that says if you return it in, a condition that's not considered the condition that they think they should be in, what trigger does that?
Let me see, I actually have the document here, but there is a warranty, and I mean, they are made to be out in the weather and abused, really. Yeah, I don't have the actual warranty, but I haven't heard anything at the chiefs meetings, neither, statewide chiefs meetings or county chief meetings where there's been an issue.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to look at the clause and if it make everybody more comfortable just knowing.
It's always good to have an extra set of eyes on it.
I can send that over. That's not a problem at all.
Okay, great.
Okay. But in terms of in terms of any maintenance or repairs on these things, that's just all included in the lease payment bill?
Yeah, they change them right out. They're owned by the company, and they change them out.
Okay. So you're basically paying a fee, and they're providing you a working taser at all times, is the bottom line. Okay.
And actually, it's a real good company to work with.
Yeah.
When we had the incident on Church Street, they actually replaced those tasers for free, and we own those, so they're very, they're very good to work with.
Okay. And the tasers you retire, where would they go? Private security contractors, or?
It could be, a department in another country.
Okay.
There's a company we use to get rid of them, and the check comes back to the general fund.
Any other questions on tasers?
No.
Okay. Should we shift back to the cruisers?
Sure. Again, contact lens is dry. It's at the request, again, this is a standard replacement program. There's no radios included in these ones, in these cars, because we're going to skip a year with the radios and see how that does. And quite frankly, we've been having an issue getting a hold of radios. We've been on a waiting list now for, Rich, 5-6 months.
Over in March, it'll be a year, and they're not expected until at least April. So,
yeah. So there's all kinds of supply chain issues still on getting this equipment. So right now we have a new car that's really, we can't use it as a frontline vehicle because there's no radio. because it's one unit that controls, the radio controls the lights, the siren, and all the warning equipment. So it's been a challenge to say the least.
Wow. So what will we do with two more cars that don't have radios in them? Will we pull them out of the cars that they replaced, or?
Correct. Yes.
And we've been unable to do that with the one cruiser that we already have taken delivery of. We didn't have that wasn't, I mean, I assume that replaced a vehicle in the fleet. Were we unable to pull the radio out?
The vehicle that this one is replacing is one of the old legacy radios. So it's one of the far back ones in the fleet. It's like
Okay.
7 or 8 years old. So it has the old radio, and we've gone to digital radios. We can get on a wicked rabbit hole here, but
Yeah.
it's not possible.
Okay. You can't pull it out of the old vehicle. Okay. But the next two that you replace have the newer radios, and we can swap them into the new vehicles. Okay. So just tracking the price, I mean, it looked like it, was kind of, in line, but a tiny bit higher than the two vehicles that we purchased last year. So I assume that they're all equipped identically. I guess my question is, did we back out the price of the radios and still ended up with a higher price? Is that just the cost of the vehicle going up, or how do we think about this number?
The radios are captured in a different line item in the 10-year plan.
Okay.
So it's added. So cruises are cruises. You'll see in the 10-year plan, there's a line, a row for mobile radios. So it's always, those two have always been separated.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions on the cruisers?
Nope.
Just again, are these hybrids, or are just simply typical gasoline ones?
We're trying to buy hybrids, but it appears that Ford is going to stop making the hybrid next year. It's either going to be all electric or all gasoline.
I see. Okay.
So we've had some issues with some of the hybrids, and they go out of service. When we send them out for service, they have to go to if I bring that to Robin's garage, they'll throw me out. We bring them back to the dealership, and it takes weeks to get them repaired. And it's mostly been, actually, Rich can probably speak to this. It's been a problem with the batteries.
Yeah, there's been problems with the batteries, and even from factory, some of the cars, the batteries have been wired wrong. And then like every other month, Ford will issue a service bulletin, and like they go back and forth on what the proper fix is. So at one given time, like one of the hybrid cars is most likely out of service currently.
Yeah, they're not exactly Swiss made. It's a challenge.
That's just incredibly disappointing. It really is.
So your instinct is to do what? Go back to gas?
I'm so they haven't fully committed to what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to react off of what they do. So that's why I just don't know. Last year, we could only get one hybrid cruiser, so we had to get one gas, one hybrid. The hybrids just weren't available. So it's really, the market is just really strange right now, and it's day to day.
I guess my question was, are you, when they discontinue the hybrid a year from now, is the thought that you go back to gas, or is the thought you go over to all electric? I mean, I could see problems with all electric given that you run these vehicles 24 hours a day, or at least certain of them.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to go back to gas. That's my feeling. Not knowing a ton about, how the full electric these cars are going to work. I would say we'd have to go with what we know.
And Ford, some departments have upfitted the Ford Mach-E's, and Ford has released a service bulletin to stop adding police equipment, lights and sirens and radios to those vehicles due to battery issues.
Okay.
I have a question, Chief.
Sure.
Would it make any sense, and is it even possible, according to the lease contract, to hang on to these for another year until the picture becomes more clear? on what's going to follow?
So we purchased the cruisers. We don't lease them.
Okay, so would it make sense to keep them for another year and not go for at least this year? Just to get a clearer picture on where police vehicles are headed and among the different, at least American manufacturers, the three. Yeah, I know Dodge turned out to be disappointing, and so we went to Ford, and now Ford's turning out to be disappointing. I don't know where GM is at, but I like the idea of a Swiss, like, go ahead, get yourself, an Audi. I see them in the
Yeah.
movies all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm kidding, but really the question is, does it make any sense at all to hang on to them for another year? That's all.
Well, they go in a rotation. We end up holding on to them for about 6 years. So we move vehicles back in the fleet, and when they get to end of life, which is usually around 6 years, according to the plan that we use,
Yep.
Michelle will put them up for auction. We've given one to emergency management. We have one we've actually given 2 emergency management. No, I'm sorry, one to emergency management, one to facilities, which was a Tahoe. So we spread them around. We've sold one online, and that money goes back into the general fund. So when we roll them off, we either offer them to different departments or sell them outright.
Okay, so the answer then is no, you don't want to extend, keep them for another year.
They're at end of life, and
Okay,
we found it, about 6 years, we start losing major parts and they're out of warranty and the mileage is high. So, we just don't want to get stuck, replacing a transmission or an engine, which we've
Okay.
had that before.
We have. So Bill, in terms of the rotation, I know we're probably 4 or 5 years into this new program. Have you been able to, to actually rotate them through the vehicles through different roles so that we, can time, the mileage to hit that 100,000 mark right around that 5-year expiration of the warranty and sort of max out the warranty that way?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the list here now. The school resource, school resource officer's car. It's a 2017, so it's right at that 5 years. It has 92,000 miles, so it's right where we want it. That's right where it's. So that'll get rolled off next year. When the warranty and the mileage, mileage will be about 100,000. It'll be just past that 5 years. The next vehicle down is 80,000 miles. It's a 2016 and a half, if you will. So we bought it in 2017, but it's a 2016 and same boat. So and the next one up is a 82,000, and that's a 2018. And we're starting to put some more miles on the spares because the hybrids have been going out for weeks at a time. We lost a car for, 2 months, Rich, back in the fall. So we had no car for 2 months. So some of the spares have higher mileage than we'd usually anticipate.
Okay.
But it is, the short answer would have been, yes, it's working.
Okay. Okay. And even the frontline cars that are, that are running much higher mileage per year, you're able to move them into a secondary role before they hit that 100,000 mark.
We've been moving back into detectives and things like that.
Okay. All right. And you may have already answered this, but the 2 cars you're going to buy this year, assuming this appropriation, are you going to give the hybrids another chance, or you just feel like, the car's just too much trouble, it's not worth it, just buy the gas vehicles and be done with it for now?
I'd like to give the hybrids another chance. They do work well when they work, but if there's a problem, it's just they're out of service for an extended period of time. And we have had that, but maybe, I have to assume that they're squaring themselves away at Ford, as time goes by.
Well, one would hope, but don't torture yourself from an operational perspective in the interest of buying a greener vehicle if the vehicle's never available to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the gas mileage, it does make a difference. You know, the regular gasoline ones are getting 11, 12 miles to the gallon. The hybrid, 21, 22 miles per gallon, so there is,
to get them to work.
yeah.
Well, I commend you for your tolerance. And hope you have a better luck with the next class of vehicles.
Chief, what's your own personal experience with the hybrid? Have you had a problem with your own?
No, well, actually, I take that back. Yeah, I've had, you know, the entire dashboard light up and the car just go dead on the side of the road. And then, you know, I did what you do with any computer. I shut everything down. And, you know, gave it a couple of minutes and it restarted and it held. I brought it to the dealership and they said they couldn't even identify the error code that it had thrown. Their answer was, we don't know.
And yours is a couple of years old now, something like that?
Yeah, I think mine is it's actually Lieutenant Lennon has it now. It's I think that's a 2018.
Or 2018, oh, okay.
2018 or 19.
I think it's a 20.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we did the hybrids that far back.
And there's about, you know, there's probably, actually, Rich, do you know how many miles are on that?
I think there's around like 36 or 37,000 miles on it.
No major issues. There's little nuanced things like, you know, even an oil change, you know, it takes an hour and 15 minutes to do an oil change at Jiffy Lube. They cringe when they see us coming because they have to take down the skid plates and the battery plates, and there's heavy construction going on under the car when you're sitting in it. You can hear them.
Interesting information, very, yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the vehicles?
No, everything else is relatively smooth.
All right. Looks like we got no further questions on this. And I think that's it for standard police, for the annual police request. Is that right? And then we need to talk about the facility study.
Correct.
Okay. Well, let's shift gears to the facility study.
Not sure if Michelle is still here.
I don't see her. She may have turned this over to me. So it's a request for $175,000. It appears. Michelle, she texted me because I don't have an updated sheet. I grabbed the wrong sheet when I left. But John, you want to speak to that?
I wish I could. I don't have any information on it.
Okay, so we hosted a few people at the police and fire building a few weeks ago, and we're really having operational difficulties with the way things are set up now. I can speak for the police side where we have an interview room, which doubles as the squad room, which doubles as the lunch room, which doubles as the everything else room. You know, we've had some high profile cases lately, and you know, we have to conduct interviews, and we're trying to bring in material witnesses in very important cases, serious cases, and we're corralling people in the lobby, and they're being interviewed by the press in our lobby. So we have no real holding area, and if we're conducting these interviews in our squad room where we usually do, it traps the lieutenant in his office. There's no way out for the lieutenant to get out of the building. He either has to abandon his office or he goes out the window. The facility itself, it was built in 1962, and there's myriad issues with the HVAC system. Facility was raining in the cell block the other day. We had pipes burst, and it's literally crumbling around us. And maybe Nick can speak about that.
Yeah, I can. That was actually a learning experience because we ended up figuring out that the particular HVAC that does that entire cell side of the building is actually circa 1990. It was not upgraded in the last renovation of the building, which was at 03-ish, yeah.
Yeah. oh, three.
So they didn't upgrade all of the HVAC, so they actually left 2 air handling units to heat the cell side of the station, and the attic in that building is uninsulated. And they put water in the attic. So, I mean, absolute, that does not happen. So we're actually quite fortunate that has lasted as long as it had, probably due to that nice old copper piping that's a little thicker nowadays. But yeah, it's a very I don't like using this term, but I'm going to use it. It's a Frankenstein building. It's an absolute when something was needed in the past, they just added it without thinking about how it interacted with the system next to it. So, whenever you go to troubleshoot, you're you spend half the day trying to figure out which system you actually need to be focusing on because of that. So it's quite challenging. And then the system that they did upgrade is in itself an extremely complicated system to diagnose, that coupled with the fact that it serves the fire or part of the fire side and the police with the thermostat on one side. So we're never going to be able to get it working perfectly without massive upgrades, basically.
One of the issues we're also having in that main room, that squad room, as we call it, interview room, is the HVAC, the blower. It blows so loud and hard that you can't hear yourself think. So we're trying to conduct interviews, and I called poor Nick in a panic. We're doing interviews about a murder investigation, and you can't hear the tape. And people are saying, I'm like, I need you over here right now. I don't care if you have to, take wire cutters to this thing. We need this fan to stop. And, Nick was around and good enough to stop by, but it's just, it doesn't work anymore. This has to be addressed. It's just, it's outlived its useful life.
Yeah, just to piggyback with Nick about Frankenstein, building was built in '62. In the late '80s, we did an addition to the building. I know for the fire side of it, I can't speak to what they did in the police side. And then in '03, we did another addition to the building to accommodate some of the police requests and fire requests. So yeah, the building has had many alterations to it, and the systems really can't handle what we've done to it. We've had to add a tankless hot water heater on our side of the building just to meet the hot water demands, just for hygiene purposes, because all the pipes run on the apparatus floor, and it's good luck trying to get a pipe underneath an apparatus floor that was built in '62. The other thing too is our kitchen area serves same thing as the training area, the day room, the kitchen. So there's only really one place that the on-duty group can go and try to get some kind of life training and eating all at once. It's tough when someone wants to train and someone wants to come make a meal. It doesn't work. The other thing too is we don't have a real place for when walk-in medicals come into the station, especially we do a lot of blood pressure checks. People come in, they sit down, they're in the watch area. And that's what we do all our administrative work for the guys around duty. When they're doing their checkoffs, they come in and have to fill out forms, put information into the computer systems, do the scheduling for the next day. So that's not a great place to have someone come in and sit down, and especially if it's a medical, handle that right there while another guy is trying to do some administrative work. So those are some of the problems that we have with the building. And the other thing too is we have a second ambulance that we can't keep in-house. We have to keep it down behind the town hall. And so if we need that, we gotta go up to town hall and get it. And we should have it under the same roof with the rest of the apparatus that we have here now.
And just one other thing that John reminded me of, the state was in last month and a month and a half ago, and they flagged our cell block again, and it is not in compliance with state law. They've written us up, they've notified the Board of Health, they've notified the Select Board office, as well as the Department of Public Health. So on the, you can't have bars anymore. Again, the cell block was built in the early 60s. And so, bars are out nowadays. You need regular doors. So in the next, they want it done yesterday, but I was able to get a little bit of an extension just because that we're working on it and having these meetings, but it's going to require an architect and full revamp, rebuild of the entire cell block and Sally Port area. It's so out of date that it's not in compliance with law anymore.
Bill, this may sound naive, but if bars are out, what do they replace it with? Is it
Steel doors.
Steel doors? But how about the rest of the wall? I mean, are they just completely walled in with a steel door? And
Nick can probably speak to this because he was above them, but it's a cinder block.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. Yeah, so the entire cell block, ceiling, walls, everything is encased in concrete. So it's like a big concrete thing with the bars on front. I believe new cells are, like you said, it is all metal. So even where the door isn't, that's metal. Then a metal door, probably a small viewing window. But and correct me if I'm wrong, and wasn't the square footage of the cells itself too small?
Yeah, they're too small. They don't comply with modern day standards for a humane cell.
So when you start talking about needing to increase square footage, there is no space to go there. That's busting out the backside of the entire building, putting an addition in, taking away parking lot and probably a garage bay, I would imagine.
okay, so what is the thinking? Different built new building, different location. What do people have in mind?
Well, we have a piece of property at 3 and Pond that require a lot of site work, I would guess. And we've been kicking around different sites on 3A, and would probably require the fire department also would want a presence if we go to 3A, I'm sure, to be on that side of the tracks. But I think that's what this study is about, trying to figure out what we're going to do. What are the next steps? Identifying a proper site and, the actual needs. Are there plans out there that we could use? Do we have to, do they have to be totally redrawn, or is there a standard, police station that blueprint for a police station out there, whether it's, I don't know, pick a town that's Eastham, Chatham, or Wayland. These places all have new stations. So is that going to be a play type thing?
And yeah, we definitely need to have a presence up on 3A. Our response times to Beechwood, North Cohasset are horrendous. We don't meet the standards of 4 to 6 minutes. The house fire that we had back in January, we had a 9-minute response time. The first arriving unit took 9 minutes to leave here at 44 Elm Street to make it to 725 Jerusalem Road. And then again, all the building and development all along 3A. We running up to 3A a lot now, whether it's for medicals, fire alarms, car accidents. We have the new, well, it's not new, it's been in operation over a year now. Evoke, the detox center, We're running up there a lot. So, and then we also have the assisted living on 3A too. So, yeah, we're seeing increased volume, run volume up to that part of town. So it'd be great to have a presence up there. We could just have a great 2-bay substation would do us fine up there. We're not looking for a big station, but 2-bay station, and again, that would allow us to put another vehicle under our roof and control it and be able to use it when needed, if needed.
So you're not talking about moving the entire fire station over there?
No, because if we move the entire fire station, then the response time problem that we solved up that end, now we created down this end. So
I don't know. Is that true? If you move it to a more central location, could you hit everywhere in town from one location?
I don't know. That's a good question. The problem is we also have the commuter rail. It's right in half. So we get caught at the grade crossings, Sawyer Street, Beechwood Street, and that affects our response times. So we got to be careful where we could put it. A great place would probably be the Muse Circus, centrally located for us. But
I'm sorry, the where?
The Muse Circus, but they're not leaving anytime soon.
So, this is going to immediately, if we start talking about 2 locations for fire, it immediately spills into an operating budget and staffing discussion. What does the addition of a second location do to your staffing requirements?
So it splits us up. So right now, if we have 4 on duty, we can have 2 in one station, 2 in another station. As we're looking, if we have 6 on, then we have 4 in one and 2 in the other. So we can change our staffing levels according to what we have for now. So So
you guys run minimum shifts of 4 people in the building?
Correct. Right now, we go down to 4 is the lowest.
Okay, and so you would just split that fundamentally?
Yeah, it would split that.
Can 2 people move a fire truck to location while others? I'm just thinking out loud. There's a series of operational questions.
No, it is, and we have like response cards, running cards, depending on the town. We have the town divided in 3 districts, and that's more for mutual aid requirements. But we can change our response cards to whatever district is, the call, the nature of the call is who's going to go first, who goes second. So we can change things around. That's not a problem for us. For responses to districts in town, depending what station goes first.
Okay, so just hypothetically, if we put a fire presence along with a new police station out on 3A, we'd still have a fire department downtown, which means we'd still need to fundamentally renovate that whole building. Yeah?
Correct. There'd be some renovations to this building also.
Okay. I've been asking a lot of questions. I'm sure other people are.
I have a question, yeah. So then the request really is for a feasibility study, is that right? As to what needs to be done and the options that there are for both stations, is that right?
Yes, correct.
And so then it sounds like there'll be some sort of itemization or something along those lines, or a list of the deficiencies in the current buildings and what needs to, how those would need to be up to date, and or additional locations that they'll help identify if you haven't already identified, and what the cost and what the cost might be of those based on, to your point, Chief, certain configurations that would make sense for this town.
I know that MAPC did a study back in 2015, and they identified all these problems, and it's in a report. I don't know if I've sent it to you folks or not, or if you've seen it, but I can. So a lot of the stuff is already identified back in 2015.
Okay.
I can tell you it hasn't gotten any better.
Yeah.
Maybe Michelle can jump in. She knows more about the locations and some of the different options we've been looking at, but we're sort of stuck.
Yeah, so do we talk about temporary space and things like that? Sorry, I
No.
jumped out. Okay. So after the walkthrough that we had, we looked at some immediate temporary space to help alleviate some of the congestion over at the police station, which would ultimately also help the fire department. And we looked at a temporary trailer similar to something that we had during the COVID period. We got information from the company that, the leasing option probably isn't the best option for anything longer than a 12-month period. So they offered us a purchase option, and the purchase option for a trailer that could accommodate, I think it was a little bit over 1,000 square feet of space, which would have 4 offices and a general meeting area, as well as a toilet room, would be about $120,000. And it would be ours. We could keep it. And then for any other projects we had in the future, if in fact we were to move forward with building a public safety building, or if the town hall moved forward or schools, we now own a trailer that we could use to accommodate the needs of some overflow space. So that was one option we looked at. As far as the public safety siting study, I uploaded the email we got from the designer. The designer has done several projects in the local area. And if you go on their website, you'll see all the public safety buildings that they've done. And what I did ask them to do is, since you've done so many public safety buildings that are very similar to what we're looking for, can you share the cost of what these buildings were to build when they were done? And, what type of footprint do you think would work for us? Because they've been to our facility before. So without going really deep into the study, I'm asking them some surface questions to see if we can kind of, I don't want to say pick off a modular public safety building, but essentially if they've done it before and they have the design plans and it's something that meets our needs, then maybe that just is the best way to approach this. So that's kind of how we're looking at things. There's a couple of pieces of land in town that we're looking at. One is town-owned, of course, there's wetland issues. Nothing that can't be replicated elsewhere, but it's a little bit of a problematic site. And the other sites would be sites that aren't owned by the town would have to purchase.
The other sites, do they offer the same benefit of a central location that the one does on Pond and 3A?
Mm-hmm. Both do. The 2 locations that we're looking at
Okay.
are very central.
Okay. And are they both available for sale, or are they purely hypothetical, just simply unbuilt lots?
One piece of property is hypothetical. At this point in time, we do have, I think there's a lien on it for tax title. So that's a little more than hypothetical at this point. And the other piece is a town-owned piece of land that we're working with conservation to see about the replication of the wetlands.
Okay, that's the 3A and Pond location. Or is it a different location?
That's 3A, and is it Red Fox Lane? It's behind Stop and Shop. Well, adjacent to
Yeah.
Stop and Shop, I should say.
Red Fox Lane.
Red Fox Lane, yeah.
Okay, so that one also has wetlands issues.
Mhm.
Okay.
But relatively flat, because that was one of the issues when I was at the walkthrough that you guys talked a lot about, is the building is sandwiched between another building behind it, and it really limits. I think, John, you were saying it makes it difficult to even get some of the vehicles in and out of your garage.
Especially we do run apparatus out the back of the station, and yeah, it can be very tight. We usually get the housing for the elderly and 3 group homes next door. So yeah, it can be very, very busy. And the other thing too is we gotta be careful where we park, because if we park in a marked spot for the housing for the elderly, we get in big trouble. If we
Right,
block
so-
one of this, we block one of their spots when we have the trucks out doing a truck check or training or something like that, we get in big trouble if someone can't access their spot. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
What do they
So
do? Call the
having
police?
an adequate.
Oh, yeah.
Adequate property around it is,
Yeah.
considering the purpose here is moving cars and vehicles and in emergency situations. I can't even believe you guys can really
Yeah.
operate that well out of there the way it is right now. But they also had on site like storage containers full of things that don't fit in the building, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. And I think my feeling was if the police were no longer there, then fire would not necessarily take over the building that's next door. That is now police, but part of that area would become additional parking and just circulation around the existing structure.
So you're saying you'd actually take the wing down?
I don't, yeah, I mean, otherwise you're improving a little bit, but you still got the problem with the back of the building being, right up against the housing unit.
Okay. Anyone else? Thoughts, questions?
Yeah, what is the request for, and can we get a formal request form in if it's, I haven't seen it. Anybody? How much is the request for?
I think there may be two requests that we will put forth after socializing both ideas. One would be temporary space at $120,000. That's the temporary modular space. And the second one would be a public safety sighting study. And that would be at $175,000.
And then I see on the proposed warrant, $15 million request for public safety building as a placeholder. How serious is that? And how accurate, or no, I shouldn't say accurate, how realistic is that $15 million number?
Mike, it's been there for, and I up it by a couple million every 3 or 4 years. But it's been part of this 10-year plan for 25 years.
Right. So it's listed as a placeholder, Article 17. So how real is that request? Will that be coming before us?
So I think I can answer that to the best of our ability at this time. I think we'd have to go get some more information back from the designer as to what the previous public safety buildings that were designed cost. And then I think we would have to move forward with the study first to get a true number.
Okay. So will that warrant article actually appear before town meeting?
So I really believe that is dependent on how the long-term financial planning group moves forward. If we're going to move forward with a debt exclusion package and how much we're going to put forth, and if that's going to be a one-time ask or if it's going to be an ask over time, I think that's really where the long-term financial planning group may weigh in.
Okay, I haven't heard anything about that. I thought I was part of that group, but that's another story, I guess.
You were in attendance at the last meeting.
Oh, all right. I don't recall that coming up. So it seems like there's a fair amount of discussion yet to be held in order to move this ahead, which it needs to be moved ahead, in my view. And I would certainly put the public safety building ahead of a town hall at this point, given what we've heard.
Can I ask, is the temporary space required? I'm not sure I can connect the dots on why temporary space is required. you go forth with the design, $175,000, I think you said, for design of finding the right place or looking at several locations. And if that moves forward, I'm not sure I'm understanding why temporary space is needed.
We just don't have an effective place to interview people.
I see. Okay.
Everything has to be recorded now. We actually have the recorder. And, you know, we've been making great use of it lately, but, the room that we're using is not optimal. And we have to, you know, some of these interviews go hours and hours, 3-4 hours. With, you know, people can't use their offices, you know, offices can't have lunch, we can't run roll call. So we don't have the office space at this point. And we're, you know, besides that, we're moving towards a model with mental health clinicians and co-responders, and they need a space to actually, private space to meet with people if they have to talk to, I'll call them a patient. So we just don't, we can't accommodate, you know, not even a half a body at this point. Which is, there's just no room. We're using literally closets as offices.
Okay. Sorry, I was just not making the connection between the study, but I understand now.
So Chief,
Where would we locate this temporary space?
I mean, the only place we really could is probably out behind the police station where the temporary COVID trailer was, which is going to limit our use of one of the garage bays. We started off with 3 garage bays. We took one out of service to make an evidence room. Now we're gonna have to take probably the other 2 bays out of service. We're using them for storage now anyhow. There's a UTV in there, and we'd probably have to, you know, we just can't get a car in there. So we'd probably have to put those trailers or temporary modular building somewhere in front of those. We could still access the garage doors, but this unit would be out in the driveway per se.
Yeah.
And it would be used for interviews?
Probably put, I would say detectives out there, interview room, as well as space for the lieutenant, so people can actually have lunch at the station. We don't have the space for officers to even eat, really.
So Chief, I'm sure you guys already vetted this, but using a existing property that you can rent is not going to work because of it's not specially outfitted for police service, or are there parties in the police station that could move to a property like that and then repurpose the area in the station where they're located?
We talked about office space around town, but you know, the more we kick that around, well, first of all, there's not a lot of office space available, and you know, is in that model, you know, we're getting temporary space for our money, but if we went with the modular building, we'd still get the temporary space, and we'd own the building. We'd own something at the end of it that could be used by departments. But we're open to anything, really.
Okay. It feels to me like the 2 primary decisions that need to be made are, you know, what does the fire model look like? Is it, you know, is it 1 location or is it 2? And what are they, you know, and really understanding the operational impacts of that decision. I mean, it sounds straightforward to just say it, but I think to really work through, you know, running 2 locations, which is something that we haven't done in 50 years, is probably going to surprise us in a lot of ways.
And we really have to think, you know, 30, 40 years down the road as well. You know,
Yeah.
Need a place to live.
You're exactly right. I think there's a lot of thought that needs to go through it, and so much of it is operational and not driven by, you know, an architect. To be blunt, I mean, we hire an architect to do a study, and they're going to start, you know, they're going to pick a location and start dreaming up a building, and that's fine. Okay, when we're ready to actually pick a spot and draw a building, but I think we really need to think about what, you know, what the departments, specifically fire, where we're talking about, you know, two locations as opposed to one is really going to look like and how it's going to operate in that scenario, and understanding any budgetary impacts of it. Otherwise, I feel like maybe putting the cart before the horse on the, putting pen to paper on a building. I mean, the second thing that feels like we really need to figure it out, earlier rather than later is the, is the location. The location can impact the model too, as to whether or not fire is one location or two. I'm not sure how you get around the crossings issue, but. Are we happy with the two locations that are in front of us right now?
I mean, there's not a lot of choice.
It's true.
I mean, it would, 3A, being up around 3A would be great for us. Like I said, help meet the national standards of response times to incidents. 4 to 6 minutes, we could cover, good portion of the town up in the Beechwood section, all along 3A corridor, and even in good parts of the North Cohasset. If we're up on that 3A area, whether it be between Sawyer and Pond. And then again, then we gotta respond back down to here, down to the harbor area. We have a group home next door to us, housing for the elderly behind us. And then we got 1 Pleasant Street coming in play and 124 Elm Street. So we got additional residents coming on board. So, so we've got to keep our 2 locations, or a future location up along 3A corridor and the current location we have now. The town is expanding, and we need to keep up with the expanding of the community and provide the best response times that we can.
All right.
I was going to say, Brian, I was going to say, this is one where you really have to think through what do you do first? What do you do second? What do you do third? I mean, so that, because it's way too, it's an incredibly fluid situation. And I share your view. We don't immediately hire an architect to do this. This takes the people who know what they're talking about within the town, namely our 2 chiefs and a few other people, to kind of sort through what's number 1, what's number 2, what's number 3, and what's practical. I mean, you got to start with the people here. I just don't think having an architect come in tomorrow or hiring one is going to do much. We've had an awful lot of studies which lead us absolutely nowhere, as you know. So it is the people who actually decide, who actually have to make the things work. So I'm very much in favor of having both chiefs and maybe Michelle and maybe a few others getting together and really sort through this thing. And what's number 1, what's 2, what's 3? What are the problems? How are you going to solve them? What are the real options? So anyway, different view.
Ralph, I fully agree with you. I'm sorry.
Please, Chief, proceed.
I fully agree with you, Ralph. It's, this has to be sequenced properly. The immediate need is space to conduct interviews, to give people proper office, because that's operational. It's actually impacting the operation of the department. So once we get that, the space needs, temporary space needs, and whether that's renting a storefront on 3A and making a substation for detectives and interviews, or it's buying a modular trailer for use. We have to move forward on something like that. That would be the first thing. And I guess the next is just an operational study. What do you need? What do you see your future needs as being? And that will drive, where we go and how we get there. What is that parcel of land, which would be best for what is going to fit our needs that were identified in that operational study.
And sorry, go on.
So just a quick question, Michelle, is the money, looking for money for a feasibility study? Is that what it is? So we're really not looking for an architect right now. We're looking more of a feasibility study of what the public safety can provide to the community and what the community is going to look like in the next, 30, 40 years. And will we be able to meet that need? And are we meeting the national standards of delivering public safety to the community? So we're more like looking at a feasibility study, correct? More than looking at a building and so forth.
Yes and no. So the pricing that was given to us was kind of all encompassing. If we're looking strictly for the feasibility that you're asking for, we can go back to the designer and say, this is really what we're looking for. We don't want to look at any drawings or anything like that at this point in time. That would be secondary once we can identify what our true needs are and see if there's a proposal for that. What we've been working on is the proposal that the designer has done in the past with Chief Sylvia. So we're just kind of regurgitating that a little bit with new pricing. But if that's not where we are, we need to be very specific and go back to them and say, we're not there yet. We still need, like you're talking, just a down and dirty feasibility study, response time, where the best location is, and things of that nature. And then once that's figured out, we can move to the design portion.
Yeah,
So Hingham just went through this. Well, they spent the last 4 or 5 years going through this, and they just brought it. I think it just got approved at their town meeting in 2020.
It did. It's already been approved. They're ready to go to shovel, I think in March or April sometime.
Yeah. But they did use an architectural firm to do the feasibility study, but it's an architectural firm that specializes in public safety buildings. I'm actually looking at the website right now. I don't know if it's the one that you're talking with, Michelle, but they've got to have 50 public safety buildings on this website, all in Massachusetts at this firm.
Did they do Situate as well?
I don't know. It's like.
Oh, I didn't know if you had the list of them in front of you.
Through them. Possibly, but.
All of these companies seem like they're one-stop shopping. They do everything from, clerk of the works to the feasibility study.
Well, my point is that it's great to have a feasibility study done amongst your own population, but there is some science to, the process of going through a feasibility study. And if you're working with a specialty firm that does this for a living, then they're going to probably come up with a lot. Well, not come up, they're going to advise you on a lot of things that you might not even have realized yourselves.
Agreed. Yeah.
But it may be a good idea to talk to the people in Hingham who recently went through this. And
it's a great idea. I know, Chief Quigley, we did that with regards to the police car fleet, and it was very informative. It's a great idea, Susan. We probably should schedule a meeting with someone from Hingham and just get as much of a Vulcan mind meld as we can.
I'll actually see most of those folks tomorrow morning. I have a meeting in Hingham.
Okay. Well, see if they're willing to take an hour to talk to us.
Sure.
It'd be really interesting to learn from them.
and they actually have the plans of the building on their Hingham, Massachusetts website. If you want to see what they came up with.
Okay.
Oh, it's a good sized building.
Yeah, it is big. It's bigger
Yeah,
than
it's a big building. Yep.
Well, they certainly didn't skimp in Situate either. It's a massive building.
Yeah.
So I keep coming back to the very first question, which is it one location or two for fire? I feel like that's the very first decision that needs to be made, and that everybody needs to understand the implications of that before anyone starts drawing a building. Chief Dockery, I think that's very much in your court to map out what that looks like and what it means operationally. In terms of locations of vehicle, in terms of locations of people, staffing requirements, operating cost implications, just the practical reality of how you respond to calls. If in fact you were, to truly just take your staff and divide it by 2 and put them in 2 different places. I think it's really important to think through the implications of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, but again, this kind of allows us to have 2 stations with 2 ambulances in them, 1 in each station. So, now we can respond to, calls more effectively towards what part of town, the nearest ambulance is. So that's a beneficial right there, that, we could put up 2 ambulances and, respond to, the type of calls, when they come in, and it'll be the closest ambulance to, if they're in town, be able to respond to that incident. So that's one of the benefits too. And again, it'll also improve our response times.
Yeah.
Again, we're not meeting the national standards of response times to incidents. So those are two good two benefits right there. for us.
Look, I don't debate their benefits. There's an operational challenge to running 2 operations versus 1. And there's probably a cost involved. And I think that needs to be worked out before, jumping on board with the idea of building a second building. It's not something we should debate tonight. It's just work that needs to be done before, we go down the path of making a major monetary commitment on a massive asset that's going to change the way we do business for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
I would thoroughly encourage you to have a conversation as soon as possible with the advisory committee, because the operating budget is and headcount issues and staffing requirements are very much their purview and not ours. But we're cognizant of the impacts when we sign up for a second building or an asset of that nature. So I know Mike Barkley's on. I don't know, Michael, if you have any thoughts or comments you'd like to share. I know your hand's not up, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm curious if you have any suggestions as to how we can best advance this. Maybe we lost Mr. Barkley. Okay. All right. Okay. So let me just ask you about the temporary space. Is that, Bill, is that fundamentally a separate request from the facility study? Is that really what I'm hearing? So that's a fiscal 24 request, and the facility study may or may not be. Is that what this comes down to? Modular space is separate and apart.
Yeah, either that or, space off-site somewhere, but
Okay.
something, yeah.
So would this go under the police lines or the facility lines in looking at how we divide up our stabilization fund? 120,000 for temporary modular space.
I don't have an answer to that. I'll defer to Michelle.
Yeah.
I think it would remain under the police item.
Okay.
I mean, each department has a facility, and it's the single biggest capital item they can ever ask for. So I think it makes sense that it stays with the department.
Okay.
Okay.
So is our expectation, should we set expectations for both Chief Dockery and Chief Quigley to put their heads together, perhaps, and engage some of their senior staff and come up with a sketch for what a 2-building public safety infrastructure would look like in terms of cost, in terms of operating cost? Forget about how much it costs to build it. It's just once built, how much would it add to the town's bottom line, if any, to run it?
I love that idea because John Dockery pays for the gas and electricity.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, there's definitely additional operating costs, electricity and heat right off the top of it. Will increase those line items. So
You're talking,
I think we're more concerned about labor, which is always, as we all know, the most expensive part of running anything. So
Right.
what would happen to the way you manage your shifts, where you deploy your officers and firefighters, whether there's any need to increase staff?
yeah, I was at this time, I would have to say no. No, not right now. At this time, no need for increasing of staff.
And
Mhm.
We're already working to increase staff slowly but surely if we're on one station. So we're not looking to increase staff if we move to a second station.
Mhm.
it would have zero impact on the police side with staff.
So Brian, does that answer your question, your concern? You know, this is a discussion. We're not calling
Yeah.
people, to account, but just in terms of discussing our concerns and whether our concerns are being addressed. Do you feel like it's been addressed or, pending, further?
I'm hearing a fair degree of certainty that it has zero impact on staffing, that you could literally take, half the staff from downtown and put them out on 3A. And that you would be able to scramble ambulances, scramble, fire trucks, scramble whatever you need with the exact same efficiency, despite having half the people in two, split between two different locations.
Yeah.
I mean, if operationally it's that simple, then that's great. I just I don't know enough about how you staff to really understand it. So, but if that's what you're saying, I'm prepared to take it at face value for tonight anyway. Okay. Okay. Well, it's 7 o'clock. We're obviously all processing this, and I'm not sure we're making a lot of progress at the moment. It certainly, ask if anyone else has any other questions, any other comments. Otherwise I'd like to take this under advisement. We'll probably, would definitely love to talk to the Hingham people if we can get a teach-in from them as to their process and how they navigated it. I think we learn a lot.
I'll reach out to those folks tomorrow.
I have a question for Michelle. And that is, will we be getting any kind of formal request for the modular space and the design study? And has Chris Senior added more funds into the capital stabilization line for annual town meeting, giving capital budget more funds to work with?
So I can answer the first part. I cannot answer the second part. The first part would be, yes, you will see a formal request after the chiefs speak to one another and decide what the best way is to move forward. You'll either see a request for one or both of those items. I'm sure they'll speak amongst themselves and decide which is the best way to move forward. As far as additional money to the capital plan, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't have an answer for that, so I don't know. I can certainly follow up with Jennifer Mullen and Chris in the morning and ask.
Yeah.
And shoot you off an email and let you know.
Great.
Sounds great. And Michelle, what if anything is being done right now to figure out the wetland issues over on the 3A pond site, and for that matter, the Red Fox site? You'd mentioned some people are looking at it. What exactly does that
So we've
entail?
already had a phase 2 done of the Pond Street site. We would have to move to a phase 3. And then there's also a transfer of land that has to happen over there on the Pond Street side. As far as the other piece, we're talking about, do we just go straight to a phase 3 there, right? Which will flag all the wetlands and it'll give us a better picture of what's going on that site. So it's something we talked about conceptually. This is something we just talked about maybe right after the walkthrough that we had. So we're moving forward, but that's all the information I have at this point.
Okay. All right. All right. I don't have any further questions. Anyone else?
Our next meeting, are we going to go again next Monday?
I think that would be the plan.
So I think next Monday's is it President's Day?
I think you're right. So how do people look the rest of the week?
I'm fine.
Okay. Francine, you're shaking your head. Is that-
I'm not available. No,
You're
I'm
not available at all?
No.
Okay,
School,
Right.
school vacation week, isn't it?
fair enough.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Bum free. Susan, you okay?
Yep, I'm fine.
Any conflicts at all that I should try to navigate around?
Well, Wednesday's my hardest day because that's the day that I work in Boston. So
Okay,
other than that,
okay. Okay, so we'll shoot for Tuesday or Thursday. Ralph, how about you? Sounds like we may have lost Ralph. Okay. All right, we'll pull together an agenda, getting a meeting on the calendar for next week and keep moving this forward. I think we're actually through all the departments at this point, but we still have a lot of these big issues hanging out there, like town hall, school facilities, building committee, and the like. So I'm sure we'll have something to deal with next week.
So I'm sorry, Brian, if you don't mind, we just heard today from the CM for the town hall building.
Yep.
And they're on track. They told us a 3-week time frame to turn around some preliminary estimates.
Mhm.
And we should have those by the end of this week. So they'll be ready to, I think, socialize the following week.
Okay. All right. And possibly, I know Jennifer got through her operating budget with the select board on Tuesday. Hopefully she's coming up for air and can actually shift over towards figuring out, how to appropriate for, how much to and how to appropriate for capital this year, which is going to drive just all of our capacity. So, and a lot of decisions as to what does or doesn't get done this year. So we'll have something for next week for sure. And Francine, enjoy your vacation, well earned. We'll see you the following week. All right. Well, with that, I'd unless anyone has further business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Second.
second,
Thank you, Susan. All right. Roll call vote. All in favor, Michael Dick,
Mike Dick, aye.
Francine Lyons,
Nancy Lyons, aye.
Susan Franklin.
Susan Franklin, I.
Great. Ralph Dormitzer. I think we may have lost him. But we still have a quorum. So Brian Host, aye. And the time is 7:05 and we are now adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a good night.
chiefs, both of you.
Good night.
Really appreciate it.
Take care.